what?
Is the link to the project no, for the to be a panelist.
I came yesterday.
We don't need that though, do we?
No, I just need it so I can see the attendees. So I can
Did we all get it yesterday? 8 minutes. Technology. There you go. Sorry.
Okay, Ryan, I wasn't looking. Are we all good?
Yeah, we're good.
Excellent, thanks. So we'll call the meeting of the Falmouth Public Schools for March 9th to order. And per Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, the public is not allowed to physically access the school committee meeting here at the high school, but you can watch it live via the link on our agenda. It's being streamed on channel 14, and you can watch a video recording of it at our YouTube page. So we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now it's time to do our mission and vision. Yes. The Falmouth Public Schools mission. The Falmouth Public Schools creates world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resiliency. Vision. Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them. Thank you. And so we'll move right into public comment. If there's anyone, oh, I almost forgot, is anyone recording for audio recording or video recording? So please raise your hand. Okay, that's Abby. All set, Abby, you can actually lower it. Thank you for letting us know that you're recording the enterprise. And we'll do public comment. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes per individual to items not on the meeting agenda. There's no debate or action taken. Is there any public comment tonight? Can you just raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment? Oh, there we go. Can we promote? Thank you. You're quick. Oh, I think so. Oh, I thought everything moved around, so I thought. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Sounds good, go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
Turn your volume off.
It's on me. Hold on just 1 second, sorry, we're getting some feedback.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good now.
Are you good? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry, we were just getting feedback for a second there. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jonna Feike, and I'll keep it brief because I don't believe that this is on the agenda tonight. But I just wanted to, and hopefully this is going to be on the moving forward, because I know we're all trying to move forward here, that there's going to be more discussion, like specifically like what the checks and balances are going to be in regards to conversation or the topic from the last meeting. I believe it was reference is chapter 71, section 37.5 in regards to students being accused of felonies, and then the principal having the opportunity or the right to look at people on a case-by-case basis. And then there was data presented from the public Department of Education, I believe, that shows that in fact we do have disparities and racial biases in our schools. So my concern is that based on that information from the citizens of juvenile justice, that does occur, I just feel like it opens up that whole gray area. Like if you're going to allow the principal to, make these case-by-case decisions, I think it opens up a whole can of worms, and for both the student and for the administrators, like how are we going to where are the checks and balances going to be to make sure that everyone does get treated fairly? I mean, I know that you're hiring a diversity and equity and inclusion officer, and I think that's awesome, and the job looks amazing. And I know that's going to help, but I just like to move forward and know like specifically like how is that going to be addressed, because I think it's multi-level issues for both the student and the administrator.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comment, and thanks for coming two meetings in a row. It's nice to have you here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay. So the first regular item is the presentation from FIPS. We already promoted.
I haven't got that far.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I just wasn't sure. We have Friday. I think we have, is it just Friday?
Just promoted Tracy.
And Tracy, there she is.
She is.
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Hi, good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Sound okay?
Yeah, it's great.
All right. I will ask for screen sharing privileges. Is that set, Ryan?
That should be set. Is Mrs. Ashworth also supposed to be coming in as well?
Not with me, but
Okay.
all right. All right. So hi, everybody. Here we are a year later. We were scheduled to give a VIPS update right after the pandemic shut down schools. So we're actually happy to be back and sort of give you an update on what we've been doing the last 12 months. So I am going to try to screen share here. Okay. All right. Can we see that? All
Yeah,
right.
that's great.
Awesome. All right. So a year ago, as Drade likes to say, Drade, my able sidekick here, she said we were cooking with peanut oil. We had all of our program areas, our core program areas, working with all of our volunteers in place. Actually, it was ramping up to be probably one of our biggest years of volunteer hours. But be that as it may, once March hit, we did quickly have to shift gears. Yes, so along came the pandemic and we needed to do something a little bit different. So what we did pretty quickly is look at what was important to our program, to our students, to our schools, and to our volunteers. I did some color coding here just so you could sort of take a look at the shifts. Obviously, with the restriction on volunteers being in the buildings, there were some programs that just couldn't continue as they normally would. So we've put them on hold just for this year. The ongoing programs are going really well. And then it gave us an ability to really introduce some really cool new programs, which brought in a bunch of new volunteers that I'm going to be talking about. So what I'm going to do is just go through our sort of the program focus area one at a time. I'll be as brief as I can. But ultimately, I think what you need to know, and this is what we have figured out over the course of the last year, is really it is all about perspective. And, you know, you just have to look at things for what can be done and the connections that really can be maintained during these crazy times. So what we did first and foremost is we got together our staff, Drade and I, our program leaders who are amazing, and our very engaged board. And we looked at what do we need to prioritize here? And I think as this district has shown again and again, we know how important the connections really are for students, for staff, and for the volunteers, just to let them know we're still here. And we really thought it was very important to really support those established relationships that had been so vital to student wellness and confidence over the years with their mentors. We also wanted to create opportunities to get involved, because I'll tell you, a lot of our volunteers reached out to us, and what they kept telling us is, we want to do something, we want to get involved, what can we do? And that was really heartwarming over those first few months of just sort of, you know, trying to figure it all out, was just hearing from so many volunteers about their ability to want to stay connected. We also looked at working to expand the training and support we could provide volunteers so that they could maintain involvement, and what programs that normally would be in person might look like with the absence of in-person learning and in-person visits. And then we wanted to make sure we continue to meet the staff requests for volunteers, whether it's a one-time need, a weekly, or everything in between. And so this year, we are, still have our school liaisons, but we're really mostly working very directly with school staff out of the VIP's office. So first, I'd like to talk about our mentoring programs. Most of you know Nisa Morton. She's incredible. She's been our mentor programs leader for a couple of years now, hit the ground running, has never looked back. As of last March, we had our pretty record high number of one-to-one mentor matches, 98. And right now we're at 71 matches. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm pretty proud of those numbers. It took us a few months to find some kiddos. Some of them had moved out of district, living with other family members. It actually took us a little while to find some of our mentors. So all that aside, we kind of quickly shifted into finding ways that our mentors could maintain connections, and the counseling staff, the guidance department has been our partner in all of this. Just really strong support, knowing that the importance of these relationships was really key for these kids. So what Nisa did is she instituted some virtual mentor coffee hours that we had throughout the spring, summer, and they continue today. Where it's just an opportunity for mentors to share what they're doing, what's working for them, and giving each other support. Sometimes they don't hear back from their kiddos as frequently as they'd like, but they've been great about providing sort of best practices for each other and giving each other support. Nisa constantly is reaching out to our mentors, phone, email, and just really, making sure that they have the support that they need. Again, importance of counselors here. I cannot underscore that enough. We also distributed some Mentee care kits in the spring, which is a really fun way to let the kids know that their mentors were still thinking about them. They included notes in those. And we're also working on actually coming up some shared experiences kits, which will be similar to those where the mentor and the mentee are doing an activity together remotely, virtually, and then they can talk about those experiences they have following up on that too. Lots of mentor training has been going on. We've actually been asked to share some of the things we've done here in Falmouth with other programs throughout the state. And in return, we've been getting some great tips as well from what the other programs are doing. The college mentoring really never missed a beat. It just looks really different this year. Our program leaders, Meredith Axon and Eric Turkington, have done an amazing job. We've got 17 really strong matches with high school seniors that are participating in the Zorski project. 9 of those mentors are returning, have had students in the past. 5 are brand new to the program, and 1 mentor, and that's Meredith, has 3 students she's working with. And like all the other seniors, they've completed their applications and they're all now patiently or impatiently awaiting decisions and those financial aid packages. So right now the focus is actually with the mentors and students is getting them to apply for as many scholarships as possible so they can close that gap to as close to 0 as possible. We had a super nice panel of some of the Zorski participants from past years who offered to talk to this year's seniors and their mentors. It was amazing. And if you're ever interested, we did record it. So this is a current college freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior all participated in the project while they were here at Falmouth High School. And hearing it from the kids who walked the same hallways really makes a significant impact on these kids. So that was a great event. Our health and wellness program, this is probably one of the areas we've, done the most since COVID. You can see it on the screen, but most of you know about the Pen Pal program we put into play for the summer. It was a lot of fun. We had 75 students have Pen Pal matches. Some are actually still going, even though it was kind of billed as a summer project. We actually have a class here at the high school who is adopted and has Pen Pals for their entire class, which is a lot of fun. Our Wellness Wednesday videos, I hope you all enjoy those. Those are about 3-minute videos that we have sent out through our weekly emails. We're always looking for content and presenters. So please, if you have an idea or a suggestion for someone who might be able to provide a Wellness Wednesday video, it's a really nice break. It's a little time away from the screen and people from the community introducing folks to something new that just contributes to their overall sense of wellness. We were not able to hold our elementary track meet this year, but in borrowing an idea from the Falmouth Road Race with their fun run, we organized the Fit and Fun Challenge, which was a 2-week at-home event, lots of fun. We used the Padlet app for students to post pictures and videos of themselves completing the challenges. That was a lot of fun. We actually had a great number of students do that. Just over 350 students participated in that. Lots of fun with that. So a new program I'd like to talk about, and I wish Alan Kazarian was here to talk about it with me, but this is a program that was completely created in response to the pandemic. So back in late August, when we were coming back to school, Alan had just met with his staff, and they were seeing that there probably would be a really big need for students who are learning remotely that have either a 504 plan or an IEP. And just the idea of bringing in VIPS volunteers, training them, and helping them serve as part of that student's team. So we named them academic coaches. We brought in Carolyn Anderson, an amazing volunteer who has just really been a huge help to this program and getting it organized, provided lots of training. Rachel Payne, a guidance counselor, does training on the side for us, unbelievably effective at training. So the idea here is that they are checking in with the students weekly or more, and they're just really helping them. Some of the students are anxious about the amount of learning or work they have, just getting them organized, supporting them in those needs. We've had some of them students shift over to a tutoring or add a tutor as well. But it's been a really great way for those students who are learning remotely to feel supported by those volunteers, working very closely, of course, with the guidance counselors and their teaching team as well. And sort of in a return to the beginning of VIPS, the very first volunteers in 1983 were 8 volunteers here at Falmouth High School. We are back in strong force with tutoring requests and filling those really successfully this year. We've done a couple recruitment emails where we're sort of reaching out to folks who we know would like to tutor. And we've had a tremendous response. Probably in the last 6 weeks, we have matched 36 students with tutors. Some have multiple tutors. And we have a little stable of tutors that are trained and standing by to meet those requests that the staff are completing for us. So that's been really fabulous. Last sort of major program area for us is financial literacy, very important. We have a K-12 effort that we like to put into place. While some of those programs cannot happen this year in their typical form, we are gearing up for April, which is Financial Literacy Month. The Money Talk series that are held during Clipper time will return this year at the high school, presented by Falmouth alum, which are lots of fun. And something that we have wanted to do for a long time, and I'm going to say that because of the pandemic, we've actually had a chance to offer them. Beth has created a presentation for staff members. So it's on saving for retirement. And those are going to be held in April, 2 different dates coming up. I'll be sending out an announcement about those. They will be Zoom. We will record them, but it's great if you can participate in real time. And then we're also creating another one for the community. So this is sort of an entry-level overview of some of the basic personal finance concepts that people, it's a good sort of first step for people. So we've, it's been an exciting time in spite of not being able to have in person. One of the things we were going to show you last year when we came to see you was our brand new financial literacy video, which was supposed to debut last April. But I am going to do my best here to show you the video here now. So let's see what we can do. Okay.
The financial literacy program and the initiative is really aimed at equipping the students with these real-world skills, and each individual student's experience with money is vastly different. The program is grounded in 3 key concepts. The first one being save early, save often. The second one is identifying needs versus wants and making priorities. And the third one is understanding that money is a finite resource and that there's an opportunity cost to every decision you make about your money.
What are you guys learning about?
We're learning about bank deposits and withdrawals. I have been saving for 5 years. I just hit $3,000.
The students who have the opportunity to be exposed to community members, community leaders, who are able to listen to that student, get a sense of where they're at, where their questions might be, and to hopefully have that opportunity to help them through any type of path or journey that they're considering taking. We can teach. This is the process, and we will teach. But at the end of the day, it's going to be important that a student have those basic skills to apply.
These programs that we're bringing in, whether it's career awareness and preparedness, financial literacy, time management, interview skills, those are all what we're calling building a student toolkit for success. So it's pieces of different things that taken together over the K-12 span will prepare them with their own personal toolkits. So that's what we do. We bring in business partners, we bring in volunteers, we bring in community experts and resources. This community is full of people that have these amazing skills and backgrounds that they're willing to share with the kids.
That was great.
All right, great. All right, so wrapping up here shortly. I just wanted to give a shout out to the very active VIPS Board of Directors, some of whom have never had meetings with us in person because they started last June. Although I have to say we do kind of like some of these Zoom meetings, and we may continue that going forward. But one of the key things that I want to share with you about the Board of Directors is that the board is responsible for raising 50% of the VIPS operating budget every year. Obviously, the other half coming from the district. Thank you all. So that burden of raising funds is shared, of course, by the staff. We do write grants as well, but events are a big piece of the income pie as well. And as you all know, the pandemic has forced the cancellation of a lot of events, including the Feast of Falmouth last year, and unfortunately this year, the track meet, as you just heard, had to shift gears. And probably one of our most favorite events is the annual volunteer recognition dinner, which had to be canceled last year and will certainly look different this year. So those are opportunities where the board does raise funds that do support our programming. So it's kind of an important piece that I just want to point out, that those folks work very hard to help make the programs that we can bring into the schools, the training and the support and recruitment of volunteers, and the actual programs themselves possible. So post-pandemic, I like to think we're pretty good at making lemonade out of the lemons we were dealt last year. And I think some of these things are worth pointing out because I think they will continue. I think that, one of the things we've learned is that we can adapt and we can actually do things differently, and it's still going to be effective and impactful. So I think we will continue to have volunteers, especially the new folks we've recruited this year, stay engaged with us. Now, these are sometimes folks that would have been off to warmer climates in the winter, but now I think they've seen that they can continue to stay supportive of their students from wherever they are. So We're excited about that. It's really a whole new crop of folks for us to work with. I think we will continue to reduce the number of in-person meetings. I'm guessing you guys will too. And I think, we learned that we can learn new tricks, new technology. I won't tell you how stressed I was about this presentation and sharing screens a couple of times, but we did it. But I think the bottom line is we cannot wait to get our students and volunteers back together. So, Drade and I are here. We'd love to hear from you. And that's a Zoom staff meeting that we had in the spring. So we're happy to be back in person though. And I can take any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That is really nice to see all the incredible ways that you have, completely shifted gears over the last year. And that some of them are even, so remarkable that you're keeping them. It's very hopeful. Does anybody have questions for Tracy or Friday? Lisa, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to have a comment as well. I'm absolutely blown away with the amount of programs that you have. I had no idea the depth of, the tutoring program, the mentoring program, Wellness Wednesday, and the fun program with 350 students that participated. I'm just blown away. It was slide after slide of just fantastic. So thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
I think Leah had her hand up first.
Oh. Leah, you're next.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, Leah.
Oh, I always love hearing about VIPS, and it's so remarkable the amount of things that you have gotten to move through this pandemic, and additional resources. But what worries me is the funding piece. And in hearing about, like the Feast of Falmouth and all of these areas that usually bring in a good portion of what money you need, I'm wondering about what it's looked like for you fiscally. And then my other question is there a way that we have a lot of funding coming into the schools right now? Is there a way that we can potentially help support, because you've been obviously supporting the school system in ways that we really needed through this pandemic? So,
well, thank you so much for asking. Thank you for asking that. Really, it means a lot. But we, the fundraising income will hurt. Like a lot of other nonprofits, it will definitely be, we'll feel the loss of that. The board did create that I Love VIPS campaign a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you remember seeing it on social media. It was a 10-day social media campaign that did end in a fundraiser. And, so that is something moving forward. We may have to continue to do, an appeal that looks something like that. We haven't normally done an annual appeal. But yeah, we are definitely exploring as many different ways as possible. I know one of the expenses that we were able to receive a grant for was to do some training of volunteers on video conferencing platforms, which is where Rachel Payne came in, and she's fabulous. We did have a conversation with admin today about getting additional Zoom licenses for some of our tutors to continue to do the work. They were getting bounced out of sessions because we were kind of triple and double dipping. So that's something moving forward that will be very important for us, and we would love that support. We might want to look at things going forward about possibly some sharing of some of the cost of our program leaders. That the people are really what it's all about, coordinating these programs that reach every student. So thank you for asking.
Hi, Tracy and Drade. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I love that you're chameleoning, that's not even a word, but turning into having the.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you have.
I think I'm muted.
No?
I can hear you.
How about that? Better?
Yeah. There we go. Thanks. Sorry. And now, of course, I've messed you up. I'll have to train.
Can Tracy hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess, sorry.
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I shouldn't have muted. I was thinking that we were on the regular Zoom. Anyway, thank you for having VIPS turn into a chameleon in this strange time, and we're all adapting. And I think that it speaks volumes to the leadership of VIPS, how you're doing it, and you're doing such a great job at it. I like Lisa mentioned, all the wonderful programs that you're doing and that have sustained, and mentioning that it did start in 1983 with 8 volunteers, and now here you are, you know, all these years later. On a personal note, one of my children is benefiting from the tutoring program, and we couldn't be more happy with it, and so grateful that it's available. And I'm telling everyone that will listen, because I know that, like us, other families and other students are really struggling with this craziness and not being in person all the time. So I thank you for all the parents of their students and their children. I also want to give a shout out to Beth Underhill, who's doing the financial planning for the public. I think that VIPS sort of spilling out into the general public is a wonderful, thoughtful idea. I mean, who doesn't need help with financial, you know, it's not like you go to school, it's not like the average person knows how to do things like that. So I think that it's a wonderful addition, and maybe perhaps by introducing VIPS to the community, for those folks that don't know, I don't know how they don't know, but for those folks that don't know, maybe we'll get more volunteers into VIPS. And who knows where it will go. But anyway, I think it's a great idea, and thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for maintaining. Thank you for not shutting down. Thanks for adapting.
Absolutely. It was never a thought.
Andrea? Hi, Tracy.
Hey, Andrea.
As the school committee appointee to VIPS, I get to hear all this stuff on a regular basis. Every month we get to hear what's going on. And I think what I'm sort of hearing from the group here too is that, you know, obviously you come and you update us once a year. You know, our agendas are pretty full, so it's not something that we could necessarily do more regularly. But I seem to remember that, you know, in the past that we had gotten a little bit more of an update, you know, and I'm not trying to add work to your plate because I know how tapped you and Andrade both are right now. But I'm thinking about the director's reports that we see every month. If there was some way to take just maybe a piece of that, maybe it's around the programming, because getting to this point in March, I think it's great that, you know, VIPS is always so responsive to the schools, you know, that it's the standalone, you know, nonprofit, but it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Falmouth Public Schools. It would go away. So, you know, seeing how VIPS is responding along the way might be helpful, or maybe it's quarterly or something like that. So I don't know, I was just thinking that that would, you know, help us, and that it maybe would help VIPS as well, because then we know more about the needs and what's happening, and we can help recruit and spread word through our own networks. And I guess I could do that at the end of every meeting, but we always seem to have so much going on that it might not have the same impact as getting a summary from you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide those, and I can do that, you know, through you, and you can distribute them as you see fit.
That'd be great. Thank you. That way I can't see you. Did you? No, I didn't. Okay, I can see you. Okay. Good job, Roberta.
Tracy, a lot of familiar faces on there of folks who make great civic impacts, not just with VIPS, but in many organizations. If you could, please walk me through communication between, you know, either the triangle of the parents, the teachers, and the volunteer, or the corners of the square, if you will, with the student being involved in that too, with a particular focus on verbiage and as far as teaching methods that the student may respond well to. So everybody's kind of using the same verbiage, and we're all kind of going towards a common goal. If you could walk me through that communication.
Are you referring to tutoring and like the academic coaching program?
Well, no, just in general okay, I'm a volunteer. I'm working with student A, who's either, maybe on an IEP, may not be on an IEP. So I know the best way to reach the student, and that the parent also knows, what's the volunteer doing, and we're all kind of, so we're all kind of championing the what's going on, and we're all going in the same direction type of thing.
Got you. Yeah, so we're really trying to take a team approach where all the volunteers know from the beginning that they're one piece of that team. And so the staff and the counselors especially have been fabulous at giving the volunteer a little bit of information about what they know would be a good approach to use with that student. And just like mentors, I think that once a volunteer is matched with the student, they figure it out, they develop their own rapport. In fact, we just surveyed our academic coaches this week, and 100% of them said they are establishing a nice rapport with their student. So it might have taken 1 or 2 sessions, or it might have taken 6, but they're sort of developing an approach that will work for each of them. So there's definitely no one size fits all. And a lot of times the parents of the students are completely capable of helping their students, but the students for one reason or another just don't respond as well. So I know that was the case with my own kids. I wished I had a VIPS tutor back then. But I think, the point is it's someone who's just there completely as a volunteer to help the student succeed. And so we provide the training, obviously, there are rules and protocols that we have to follow. And we're always very careful to cover those right from the get-go. But the volunteers, we also have a lot of networking sessions, so the volunteers can talk to each other and talk to us about what they need, what's working, and give each other support and success, tips for that as well.
Great,
Does that answer the question?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Any last questions? Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm sorry
very
it took
much.
us a year to get to you, but thanks
All right.
for sharing
Thank
all
you.
you couldn't have shared all these new innovations if you
That's
had come
true.
on. So thanks so
Thank you.
much for joining us, Tracy. Take care. So next we have the presentation for outdoor structures and acting on a donation for the outdoor tents. Can we promote Amy? I'm assuming Amy's coming to join us. Yep, can we promote Amy? And is she gonna start us off?
Yes, she sure is.
Oh, great. Yeah, she was just there a second ago. Where'd she go? There she is.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So I'm going to do a screen share here, and I'm doing it from my remote work computer. So hopefully this works okay. And I'm going to be talking about just kind of quickly going through the outdoor learning and focusing on the structures and how we came to this.
Great.
1 second, let me share the screen. Do you see my whole screen, or do you just see my half screen here?
We see a whole screen of a beautiful ocean view.
Do you see the kids though?
No.
Let me move them over here. Now do you see that?
Nope.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there we go. Now we have a tent, outdoor learning.
Okay. Let me move it over here where it should be. Sorry. Okay. All right. So you see the tent now, right?
Oh, it just went away. There we go. Oh, now it's gone.
I'm having trouble dragging it over. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. There we go.
That looks good.
Okay, here we go. So outdoor learning. I know a lot of you already know the benefits, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This is a slideshow. I've done a couple of times talking about the benefits of the outdoor learning and the information out there and how it's not just good for the pandemic, it's good for mental health, physical health, even with special ed students. It can, because of how much screen time has increased, this can result in nature deficit disorder. And, time and time again, we're hearing the true answer is get back to outside. And historically, Around the world, this has been done before. It actually started in 1904, and over a period of time, up until World War I, it was actually used pretty widespread worldwide, including in Providence, Rhode Island during the winter time. And that was one of the first outdoor schools in the United States. After the introduction of antibiotics and how medicine has progressed, it became less important to be outdoors, and we kind of pivoted. There was a change in education, and certainly as someone who went to school during the 90s and graduated in 2000, we became more of a test-focused culture. And I know that's important to see where all the kids are, but it kind of took away from this hands-on learning approach. A lot of schools have now pivoted towards outdoor learning. We are a leader in the state of Massachusetts within the public school sector for outdoor learning. Other schools around the United States that are also doing it that I've highlighted is Portland, Katahdin, Maine, San Francisco, and a tremendous amount of work has been done and will continue to be done. There's some pictures you see from both our kids and from kids all over the United States. A lot of these are from Maine. You can see they spend 2.5 to 3 hours outside of learning time on learning every single day up there, which is phenomenal. So it is possible. So to date, the Falmouth Outdoor Learning Project has fundraised over $66,000. We've expensed close to $40,000. We've had 277 volunteers, and we are approaching about 1,000 hours of volunteer hours. We expect to beat that by the end of this month. And I've kind of put down some of the things that we've done, but to highlight something recent was we worked with Math Coach State Strong for an outdoor prime number game for 5 of the schools. She put out a call for 500 wooden discs made from tree trunks, and we delivered those to her. So I know that those have been painted and are now being in process of being put into the schools, but there's been additional stuff that we have worked at as well. And we've also been featured in the press, including the New York Times twice and in CBC Canada and international news. All who would like to come back once we have some shelters and best practices and other curriculum taking place outside. So the shelters were a big topic for us, and we've worked a number of months, and I had met with Mr. Murphy back at the start of the school year. And I know that there have been tents that were originally rented and put at all the schools. I believe it was 2 per school. And we were looking at those and looking at the square footage and looking at the sustainability of those. And our committee went to work researching viable replacements for those, considering the weather conditions and restrictions, sustainability and maximum usage, as well as cost efficiency. We narrowed down options for the students to be outside with the support of shelters to a couple options here. We talked about sun sails, which some of the schools do have, the American tents, which is what you saw in the fall, Weatherport tents, which is what we're going to discuss tonight, as well as pavilions and greenhouses. And all these things had their positive and negatives and timelines for doing these things. One of the issues with the American tent, while it was a low cost for the tent, the wind capacity for those is only about 25 to 35 mile per hour, and the snow load is only 2 inches. And so originally when we looked at replacing the rented tents with these American tents, we were like, but we're not going to be able to use them year round. And we really want to get the most bang for our buck if they're going to be using these spaces outside for curriculum, and they could be outside year round. Sun sails were a really good option, but they don't obviously protect from the snow, the pouring rain, things like that. And you can see here, there's some up at Mullen Hall, there's some up at Morse, there's another one going up at Morse, and there's several going up at both T-Ticket and North Falmouth this coming month. These are super easy, affordable, but again, they don't enable us to have year-round learning. We also explored pergolas and pavilions, but the cost effectiveness of that kind of delineated us from that. Greenhouses were also a potential option and something that we may explore again. There's one of the schools is very interested in doing this and tying it into their curriculum, but we have some more work to do on that. So that kind of left us with the Weatherport tents. And so Weatherport tents, we found, I had been researching companies all over the world that were using this, and actually a lot of schools in England and the UK use different types of shelters, but I was struggling to find an American company. And so on a Google image search, and actually this one right up here came up and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. What company is that? And it brought me to a company right out of Colorado. And so these can be used all year long. They are certified up to 120 mile per hour winds, which meets our standards here in town. They're certified up to a 30 pound per square foot snow load. They were willing to give us a bulk discount. And we didn't have to necessarily buy them with the sides, but they do come with sides and heating options and things like that. These can last up to 20 years or more. So when we factored in the cost of those, looking at what the principals were requesting for their spaces, this was a cost of $405 per year for 20 years. So there's a lot of longevity with that. There were some cons, obviously, the shipping and getting a stamped engineering package. We were actually able to negotiate we only needed one stamped engineering package, which substantially brought down the cost. One of the other negatives or hurdles for it is it needs to be overseen by an engineer or licensed contractor. Volunteers can put it up, but you need that point person. And so you also need a lot of volunteers to put them up. But once they're put up, they can stay up, they can be taken down. It's the anchoring system that takes some work there. So originally we had two different quotes to look at. And so this was, if you look on the one on the left was the one for the 15 tents that ideally that the principals had put in for that they would like to have. And those were without siding and additional things like heating and stuff. The one on the right for fully enclosed tents or the option for siding was $217,000. That being said, after discussions, we know with fresh flowing air is the best option. We don't really need the sides. And with our weather, there wasn't going to be a ton of days where they weren't going to really not be able to be out in them without sides. The final cost, we got them to agree to splitting the order into two so that we could start setting up best practices for this school year. So we cut it down to 7 and we're given a quote price of $57,806. And that includes our discount. You can see here, it went down to $6,945 per tent as opposed to $8,500 a tent. So they really worked with us on that. These Weatherport tents, examples from other schools all across the United States, Colorado, Omaha, Nebraska, University of Alaska. And you're going to see later, these tents are also used at the base of Mount Everest. And during an avalanche that took place there, actually people were saved from being in one of those tents. So, I mean, these are some of the best of the best. A lot of these tents, I think with the exception of this one in Georgia, the installations were all done with volunteers and certified contractors or engineers putting them up. And it takes about a day to a weekend, depending on how many volunteers you have. Obviously, the benefits of using the tent for it during the pandemic, outdoor learning, you could use it as a front desk. You could use it as, mass breaks, parent-teacher conferences outside, PE, band, choir, especially for music. It's incredibly important during this time. Outdoor lunch, outdoor special education, or, when they're meeting with the feelings teacher in small groups, outdoor recess could still take place out in these things. Post-pandemic, it can be used for all of the above, but they could also be used for PE classes, school events, town meeting, if the school wanted to offer them out, or outdoor learning on any type of day, rain, snow, temperature and wind chill permitting. I included this in here. We had originally talked about heating for an additional cost. Those can always be added in later. But we didn't necessarily think it was 100% necessary because the weather guidelines for the kids, as you see, they can go out and, as I'm sure you're aware, anywhere in the green. They can also go out anywhere in the yellow. It's just for a shorter amount of time. And I believe that time's approximately an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, which is the majority of those blocks. The red is where it kind of gets a little dicey. They're also good for the sun, obviously, because they have sun stuff built in. So the anchoring methods, I'm just going to show you a quick part of a quick video down here on the hangar hall setup. They did a really great video of how it got set up down in the right-hand corner here. So obviously that's sped up, but they did that over the course of a day and had a day before as prep. The tents that we're looking at are 20 by 30 and they are 600 square feet of space. And we've got the preliminary plans already in terms of how the driving rods work. There's no digging needed, and how the anchoring system exactly works into the ground. And these can be put into asphalt, gravel, dirt foundations, whatever we're choosing. And the plan is, the directions come with a custom plan for our specific region. And you see here, they've had 20 of these structures on Attic Island in the Aleutians for 15 years, which are secured with anchors to meet, and those are secured to meet 180 mile/hour gusts, which is incredible. These were some other examples, which I can send out later, but just showing how well they hold up in wind, and the Everest Base Camp for that. I'm not going to play those right now for you. They are also fabric and flame resistance. We did meet along with Patrick. We did meet with the town, including the fire department and Mr. Palmer, to go over all these things and get their blessing on whether these would meet the standards for the town. And both departments did give their blessing on that. So what we're talking about tonight is for that $57,000, the committee is gifting the $32,806 worth of the tents to the Falmouth Public Schools. I know the rest is to be made up by the school system. And I have a little quote here from one of our elementary school students about how it's been great being back in and being outside with his friends and things like that. And these were just some of my parting thoughts in general. Just, you know, this is not an individual or community issue. It's a nationwide issue. And we're all stakeholders in our kids. They've, you know, anything we can do to help make, you know, this easier for the pandemic, but also kind of rethinking how education and hands-on things work is really, really important. And hopefully, you know, as we build in and work with Dr. Tellier with the curriculum and professional development, we're hoping that, you know, we really are helping make our children good stewards of both the environment and of humanity. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. And I'll be the first to say thank you for translating Finley Walsh's quote, because I watched it in French when I saw it from the Canadian TV station. And unlike Terry, I had no idea what he was saying. I assumed it was something nice, but I had no clue.
We can always send you the translation too if you want, Kelly. We have a whole translation of it.
Other questions for Amy about the text? Go ahead, Andrea.
Amy, these sound great and obviously been very thoroughly researched, which I certainly appreciate. My question was about, because we're putting this up and it's going to remain there, what is the base, the floor, for want of another word? You know, you could see some that look like they were in the middle of grassy areas, but I presume that grass won't be able to grow under them. So I'm just thinking in terms of siting and the sort of long-term care and those sort of repercussions of the site.
So we're working with we sent out an email to the principals to kind of start to determine where they were thinking for them to go so that we can discuss with Patrick and make sure that that's all in line with what the administration thinks that it should go. They can go into any type of surface. And so we just kind of have to plan out ahead of time where exactly it goes. I will actually put that on our list to review in terms of the grass underneath, if it is on a grassy spot, to make sure that grass continues to grow and things like that. I know that we picked a lighter color so that sunlight could still permeate through it, and with no sides, we should still get a lot of sunlight in there. They can also be taken down at any point or moved. You just need the volunteer base to do it and the engineer or contractor to oversee that part because of the anchoring.
Sure.
Amy, first of all, the research you did is incredible. And it opened my eyes. I always thought these things could only be used like in the fall, the spring when it was warm. But you know, little kids, they're oblivious to, you know, what we would be freezing off and everything. So the opening up of all, not totally year-round possibilities is just amazing. And thank you. I think we're gonna really go far with these.
Any other, John?
Amy, thank you again for your efforts. I'm a big proponent that once COVID goes away, this is still going to be part of the teacher's toolkit. It's like a carpenter working with somebody that he used a handsaw and he works with somebody who's a power saw. You know, once he leaves from that job site, he's going to go get himself a power saw. They're not going to just stop years from now and say, well, we're not going to do this. It's something that works. There's a lot of benefits to it too with, you know, vitamin D, you know, preventing vitamin D deficiency, seasonal depression, helping in the wintertime. Excuse me. And currently what we're working with is, you know, the Zoom fatigue that students, there's a lot of studies on that people are staring at themselves, you know, and the dynamic of that. They're suggesting having some off time to where you just have the name up there and whatnot, and then to remove yourself. And there's nothing better than being outside to do that. And I've seen the kids out there work, and it works great. I would just suggest too, along with Patrick, I see that says that there's some federal funds, any other federal funds that we could try to get to take advantage of this would be great. But kudos for your efforts. And
thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I've said it to Dr. Dora a number of times. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And our committee, along with the administration, we're playing the long game here. So we've attacked it through, you know, getting the immediate needs set up for the fall time when the kids first came back, and then the recess supplies. And then we looked at the shelters. And now, as Dr. Tellier knows, we're turning the majority of our attention, once these shelters are up in place and we develop best practices, to the curriculum and professional development. Because I think some of these restrictions are going to be in place, obviously, into next school year. And we're really hoping that by bringing in and integrating the curriculum, especially through the science and math stuff, that we can regularly now use this and equitably across all the schools.
What permits are needed for the structures?
So we will need a permit for each one, and we've reached out. Mr. Palmer he gave me the cost. It's a percentage of the total cost. And we're going to work with Mr. Suso to try and get I believe, I don't know what the request exactly is called, but an abatement of those permits to see if we can qualify for one or for a discount on them. But yes, they will each need a permit at each spot. I forget what the percentage was from the meeting. I'd have to look, but it's the total percentage of the total cost.
Thank you.
Two thoughts that I have. One is I'm so glad that you're thinking not just about getting them up, but also thinking long-term to make sure that the staff know how to use them, because, you know, it's not, right now we're using them out of necessity, but, you know, if we have this wonderful resource, we want people to be able to use it. And then the other thought that came to mind when Andrea made her comment is that whenever we've made changes to the grounds, that DPW is involved since they handle our ground keeping. So I don't know if you've probably already thought about that, but also just to make sure that they're in the loop so that they don't show up one day and are upset about mowing around something. We want to make sure that they're involved.
Absolutely.
Any last questions? Okay, so we have an act on the donation. So
Kelly,
I'm sorry, Leah. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Amy, thank you so much for that presentation. And I think it's great to really think long-term around outdoor classrooms and learning. Patrick, this is more of a question for you. So this is $25,000 that would be coming from the CARES Act, or from funding that we'd be getting.
Yeah, there's a couple of different, there's money available. There's a couple of different sources. I just want to make a final recommendation to the superintendent, but funds are available.
And does it seem like we have the funds that we could put to this? I guess that's the question.
Yes, 100%, yes.
Okay. That was my That was my question. So thank you, Amy, and thank you, Patrick.
I just want to add, Kelly, really quick. And I know the results aren't in because Dr. Dorr and Dr. Tellier were going to be going over them with the principals, but we did survey the teachers and got more than a 50% response rate on how they feel about the outdoor learning and whether they're interested in it. And overwhelmingly from the responses, they, well, they don't have a ton of background knowledge in it. They are interested in it and willing to participate, especially with the support of best practices and professional development. So that's something that the committee, like I said, will be working on.
That's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad they're excited about it. Thank you. Thanks for that addition. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I have just a follow-up question. I'm glad that you brought up the teachers. And I'm not sure if this is I know this is not a question for you, Amy, but I'm just sort of thinking, wouldn't this be considered a change of teachers' workspace? And wouldn't we have to negotiate that with the union looking forward? Just sort of thinking out loud.
I think, I don't know, I don't know, because I think it would, I think we require.
It's optional. We're not mandating that they're out. But
Okay, I'm just sort of,
Yeah, no, teachers are gravitating.
perhaps I'm glad that they're gravitating toward it. I'm just sort of thinking for everything that we've learned in the last year, just sort of thinking.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And they want to be respectful of everyone.
That's really fair. John.
Well, I appreciated Leah's question to Patrick because I wanted to get that feedback as well, and Melissa's question as well. But I'll raise one myself too as well. Laurie, are you in favor of putting the tents up?
Absolutely am, and thank you, John. I absolutely recommend, and I want to just give a shout out. I wanted to do this before we ended to Amy. She said this is a marathon. We started this project. Amy just took over the lead last July, June maybe, but it was in the spring, summer, and here we are almost a year later, and she has so many volunteers, and they've just done incredible work, and there's so many plans to move forward. So talking about volunteer hours, there's been many, and so I just appreciate Amy and all the parents and community members that's worked on this. But I absolutely love the outdoor learning. I think it's especially right now, it's very healthy option. It's good for physical health, mental health, but it will be post-COVID, and I am 100% behind.
Well, I'd like to make the motion then that we accept the donation for the outdoor tents for each school as aforementioned.
Can you throw the amount in there for me? $32,806.
As you stated.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to make sure we're proper. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Everybody wants it. I don't know if I actually got it. So Leah, we'll start with you.
Yes, Leah Palmer, yes.
Even though most of us are together, because we're not all together, it's roll call. So I should have prefaced that. John?
Fenari, yes.
Lisa Hart, yes. Terry Majerus, yes.
Melissa Keefe, yes.
Natalie Kalopoulos, yes. Andrea Cole, yes. Bill?
Ryder, yes.
And Kelly Welch also, yes, that's unanimous. And Amy, we can't thank you enough. I know a lot has gone into this, so I'm looking forward to having some type of ribbon cutting something or other, because they're going to be beautiful. Yeah. So thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, so you had to wait a long time, but now you finally get to give us an update.
It's worth the wait, and both of those presentations were fantastic. They're a big part of our school system. So just a COVID update first. We currently have 5 COVID positive school community members in isolation and 38 students and staff in quarantine as being identified as potential close contacts. Our numbers have remained low even during the 2 weeks post winter break. So many thanks to our staff and their families for the continued good practices. I encourage all of our employees to sign up for the COVID vaccine. Unfortunately, the March 19th Upper Cape Tech vaccination opportunity will not be available. Sad to say, we were really hoping to be able to offer that to our employees. I will welcome another opportunity if or when available you know, Scott McGann and I had, even before this opportunity, we have something planned if we can get the vaccines and for that to happen. So we're still hoping, but in the meantime, I don't want anyone not to take advantage of an opportunity. So I just encourage everyone to go ahead and do that. And because of that, and because we can't offer an opportunity for a school day where we can have all of our employees vaccinated, we will offer for our employees to the time that they don't have to take their own personal time to get a vaccination, should they only be able to have an appointment during the school day. I know I really appreciate all of our employees. Many of them have gotten late afternoon appointments or weekend appointments, but I don't want, sometimes you got to grab the appointment you can get. And so we will be providing time for employees to do that because we know this is important and it's going to make them feel better and safer in our school. So hopefully we won't encounter any staffing issues during that, but we've worked around that before and everyone's supporting everyone. So either way, it's important that we try to ensure our staff gets vaccinated. I was invited to the town Falmouth Affirmative Action Committee meeting yesterday evening. The intent of my visit was to acknowledge the DESE data shared at both the school committee meetings and share a few highlights as we dig deeper into the data and focus on our next steps. As I've stated here, we acknowledge the data and are committed to examining and refining our practices to ensure equity for all students. While digging deeper into the data, we've identified students who need the extra supports. Restorative practices and the cultural proficiency work with Dr. Cleese Warnham will assist all of us as we work to reduce the number of overall suspensions and address the disparities in our data. So that was, we want to continue our collaboration with the Affirmative Action Committee. Returning to school,
yes.
Just this afternoon, we received the DESE guidance after Friday. The commissioner presented his returning to school plan. It was approved by the state board, and today we received the guidance. So the timeline to return for elementary grades K to 5 is stated as April 5th, and grades 6th through 8, the middle grades, on the 28th of April. Grade 5 can be considered middle school if it is connected with the upper grades, which ours is connected. So our target date is April 26th for Morris Pond and Lawrence. And that's right after we return from spring break. We've been planning in our school teams and with our parent advisory committee. I will have more to share through my weekly letters, and at the next school committee meeting, since we just received it this afternoon and we do have a superintendent's call with the commissioner tomorrow, we'll have additional information that I'll be able to share at that time. Do you want me to answer questions?
Is that on this?
Well, yeah, it ties in 1 and 2. It ties in with teachers getting a vaccinated. And then we tie into this, is the governor, is DESE pushing and supporting schools so teachers can get vaccinated? Because if there's a delay and we miss something, we really want to have the teachers, I would think, vaccinated prior to the start of school, which is April 5th. And what's also striking to me is we start April 5th with elementary. I have no problem with that, but then we go to the 26th or 6th through 8th. And I look at that delay and say, the educational process, is it broken? So I have a concern with the timelines. I also have a concern with the timelines and the ability to have the staff vaccinated. I don't know if I know you're trying, and obviously we missed one, and teachers obviously are making efforts as well. But couldn't we get some support from the state and the governor? Just bugs me.
Kelly, I kind of have.
Oh, sorry.
concern
I
now
was
as well.
back to you.
Sorry. So I was gonna wait till the end, but since Bill mentioned it, I just want to voice out loud that I feel like the April 28th date is rather aggressive, considering we're having to cancel the March 19th Upper Cape vaccination was canceled completely out of our hands. Our teachers are doing their best, and I know that Dr. Doris encouraged them to try to get their vaccines where they can. But I would be remiss if I didn't say it out loud, that I just feel like that's so aggressive in a time that we don't have even 50% of our staff vaccinated. And we're forcing the hand of parents, we're forcing the hand, I just want to go on record by saying that I just find it aggressive, and I would love some more support from the state.
Mine is just like a yes or no question. The high school is not gonna go back early?
I'm sorry, so they just don't have a date for the time, the timeline. They said they would announce that at a later date. To clarify the dates, I'm sorry. You want me to clarify the dates, or Leah, do you have a question first?
Go ahead, and then I'll ask my question when you're ready. Yeah.
I just saw your hand come up. So the elementary, K through 5 is April 5th, but our elementary is already in, K through 4. Since our 5th grade is attached to the middle school grades, then 5th grade can wait and come in with the middle school grades, which is April 28th. That is a Wednesday. We thought that the first day back on a Monday, April 26th made sense. So just to clarify the timelines, we're really targeting that the 26th of April, which will also give us spring break to reset the classrooms with the additional chairs and just to get everything in order for the students to arrive. We think it's a doable date. I do hear you with the vaccine. The reason we targeted even prior to this, after spring break, was the hope that we would have the March vaccination, and then if needed, the second vaccine just before spring break, so that we would be ready for that. So I know that many of our staff members have got their vaccine, like CVS opened up sites for educators, as soon as the president had announced it. And then this Thursday, the state opens up for educators, and there's enough. So we're hopeful. We will keep track. This is a mandate. The waivers that I've seen, I'm not sure that we would actually qualify for any of the waivers and the guidance. We need to look at it more closely, Melissa, but I think that I have to tell you, the teachers seem pretty excited about having the students back. Sure. So we're glad about that too.
Go, Leah, go ahead.
Oh.
So Lori, I have a question about the 5th grade. So because of my line of work, I read this very carefully, the document, and kind of preparing for a meeting I need to be part of tomorrow. But it was my understanding that we would potentially have to apply for a waiver for that, and that would need to be approved by the school committee. Is that how you read that also?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, there were many different waivers. That seemed to be one, though, that was almost an automatic the way they had written it. So I'm waiting to hear what the commissioner says tomorrow on that. But yes, I did read it that way, which we would have time to come back and have the school committee vote on that.
Can students still stay on remote?
Yes, so just through the end of the school year. Yes. The way that the mandate that I'm reading it is that districts cannot choose the remote, but parents can choose the remote. Okay. So we can't have a remote only option. Right. But we can have continue the remote option through the end of the year for parents to select.
Thank you.
Leah, did you finish? I didn't know if you had.
I just wanted to say that, just promote taking advantage of CVS. I did get my vaccine, and I'm a little under the weather today, but it was good. I got it yesterday, so I definitely promote that for staff of schools. So I was able to because I'm in a school system. So So just promoting that. And Lori, I really appreciate the aspect of being flexible and letting teachers have, take advantage of those appointments when they can get them and be able to get coverage in school for that. So thank you.
Terry,
We've heard in the news so much about the Cape being so isolated from services. Like me, I had to go all the way to Dartmouth to get mine. That isn't that bad. They were great there too. But you periodically meet with other Cape superintendents, right? So I don't know if there's any talk about getting local organizations to come in and, to replace the one that didn't come to pass, on the 19th or something. Because I've helped older friends get appointments. So I watch those CBS sites in the morning. Typically I look at 6:15, 6:30, 6:35, they're gone. So even though that there's tons of them throughout the state, it's really, really difficult to find them. So I know the Cape has been crying for months about more help. So I don't know if they're, I don't need to tell you how to do your job, but maybe, because they must be feeling the same pinch. And even though I hate to say it, Patrick, Barnstable, we need help them too.
So we just received a letter from our Cape legislators that they are still fighting for the educators on the Cape and still working to have an opportunity. So this just came in this afternoon as well. And so I'm encouraged that we have many people. I know Scott continues to ask for us here in Falmouth. We worked on that one opportunity. We were looking to replicate it in the Lower Cape at the other tech school with their surrounding districts. So, we're going to continue to try. We're not giving up.
Yeah.
But I just don't think people should wait, right, to find out. Take advantage as much as possible, now. But that doesn't mean we'll quit trying.
Just a quick question. Are parents, can they still choose the hybrid model? Or is it 100% in person or 100% remote?
According to this guidance, it's 100% remote or 100% in person.
Thank you.
Well, I just would suggest, and I know these are things probably you're doing, the teachers and everybody's doing anyway, but I strongly suggest a focus on Zoom fatigue and to just try to, and just the Zoom as a mechanism that we really kind of keep on top of that on both the effectiveness of it, but also on the, things like the physicality of the eyes of, taking breaks to look away at something for 20 seconds. That's 20 feet away to help the eyes to stand up, do breaks. But then also for both the, kids that may have speech challenges or maybe not as extroverted as some kids, and for that matter, teachers and support staff that, the challenges that they may have on it of trying to perform, to come up with new ideas to make it work. Any way we can focus on making that work and realizing the effects that it has on everybody using it would be very important, I think.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Natalie, so you may be getting there in your presentation.
I know, we stopped
We
her.
totally
It's a good time.
we derailed you, but could you speak to any changes within the classroom or proposed protocol once you have all children in, or are you still fleshing that out?
I don't know that we're ready to speak to that. We're certainly going back to our original feasibility studies. We are going to do a survey with our parents, whether they're going to choose 100% remote or 100% in. That'll dictate whether it's 4 feet or 5 feet. We're at 6 feet now. More kids are coming in. We'll not be able to stay at 6 feet.
Right.
So that survey we're hoping to get out toward the end of this week or early next week. So we'll know. That'll kind of indicate that. We are going to share the letter that the governor's medical advisory team for the state has written about the school. So we will include that. That'll be a part of talking about the giving their opinion of really no significant difference between 3 feet and 6 feet. There's been schools in Massachusetts and the other parts of the country around the world that has been at that 3 feet and have been successful being in. So there is a medical advisory letter to that we'll share. So, and then, we're just looking, some of the other things that we have to look at, if we go less than 6 feet in the classroom, then we can't have lunch in the classroom any longer. So we have to reconsider opening back up the cafeterias, making sure everyone's 6 feet apart. So there's several things we have to think about around, the schedules and that type. The good news is we've done a full study on the buses, and we are absolutely, we're good, even though we have not had to change the bus guidance. We did receive bus guidance recently that actually changed some of the number of students that could be on a bus. I've really not had to share that guidance yet because we've been good and we haven't had to use that. But some of that will change, but it really only affects a handful of buses where we'll have 2 or 3 or maybe up to 6 additional students on the bus. So we're still within the guidance, still pretty comfortable with that. We've talked to Scott McGann about it and going over, so it seems okay for that, but we'll share that with parents as well. If there's any type of change, then the parents of those buses or those classrooms or such will be shared directly with those parents. So
yeah, and I think even just the overview that you gave gives people the understanding of how much goes into this decision and how many different pieces.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. You had said something that when we were talking about getting the vaccines, that you would keep track of how that's going with our teachers. Are they required to report that?
No, and they're not mandated to get a vaccine. They're not required to report it. It is good information for us. Where our public health nurse would like to have it, where it comes into play, is, after you're vaccinated, then you don't have to quarantine. So, so if we have that information and the nurse has that on record, it certainly just helps the whole process of knowing who is and who isn't, and who would have to quarantine if there was someone else in the classroom that, So, I'm sure that there's not going to be 100% of our staff that's going to be quarantined. So having that and knowing who we would make sure that's quarantined if there was any close contact or such moving forward is important.
So my only last thought, I think, I can totally appreciate Melissa and Bill's frustration. Like, we get a mandate from the state to reopen, but we haven't gotten the assistance that we feel like we would like to get all of our teachers vaccinated to do that. But I really think that vaccine or not, I really believe that we can do it safely. Like you said, there's no real data that shows 3 feet or 6 feet makes any difference at all. And we have demonstrated through this year that we can do this, and we can do it without widespread super spreader anything. We've done it with relatively few cases, and we're seeing our case rates drop every week. So, I don't know. I understand the frustration, but I want the kids back in school, and I think we can do it and keep everybody safe at 4 feet or 3¼ feet or whatever it ends up being. I think that the damage of having them home is just, it's terrible. Leah, thanks, Ryan.
So I just want to acknowledge that we have been doing it. So we've had, pre-K through 4th grade in 5 days a week, full time. So I'm not concerned about that aspect of it. What I'm worried about is that April 26th date. And just as we know, these are older students. We haven't had them all in. So there's some new pieces with that. I do think that, if we can get as many staff as want to can get vaccinated, and then we have that ability to not have to quarantine people, because I mean, we know that the The reason why we have to shut down schools is it's not spread. It's because we don't have the staff to staff the schools. So I feel that Falmouth, that we're in a really good place for this beginning stage. I worry about the next stages and want to support you, Lori, and everything that's moving forward, because this is going to be a lot of work. But I also really think about the other school systems in Massachusetts that have been fully remote because they have so many cases and they don't have the infrastructure to bring everyone in, and that this is a burden for them. Like I think we're in a very good place, but there are many districts out there that are not in this place. And when you look at the statistics of how many districts were hybrid or remote, I mean, we were one of the few districts that was full in person. And we're so lucky now for that. Or we've been lucky the whole time, but for this change now. And I think just to acknowledge that we're in a good place, but we have many districts around us who are not. So that's it.
No, I hear you. You're totally right. Andrea.
Sorry, Leah made me think of something else with what she said, and that is with what we're trying to accomplish here by getting students back and the timeline that we're looking at, I think just like every time we've had a break, it's incredibly important to once again stress and or beg people to be very careful with travel. And this is about the time that people might be thinking of making travel plans for that week-long break. And, you know, spring fever is hitting. People want to be outside. Some people are vaccinated. So there's going to be a little bit more, you know, interest in movements about and visiting with certain people. And the CDC has come up with some new guidelines around that, which is great. And they're very clear. And I think they're fairly easy to follow right now. But with those two things coinciding, I think we just want to be extra cautious. And this is that one last thing that could get us across the finish line and bring a ton of students back for the remainder of the school year if we do it right. So it's another plea to our community to keep that in mind, just to get us through this last bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Last, okay. Do you actually want to finish? I'm sure you're having places to go.
I do have a couple more exciting things here.
Great.
You may have already seen or know that the Falmouth Enterprise has begun a weekly series entitled Senior Spotlight. Each week they feature brief profiles of our students at the high school. Their interests range from baseball to sailing to math club, marching band or theater. They have dreams of becoming screenwriters and ship captains or professional baseball players or mathematicians. But they are very interesting to read. I really enjoy it every week. So if you haven't read them, certainly encourage you to do so. Despite the pandemic, our Falmouth students are really thriving. They're so successful in so many ways. And when you read those, you know, bios of the students, it's a very warm feeling, and we don't have the connections with the students now, but when you read things like that, it just feels very, it's a warm feeling. So I also encourage all the seniors. It's optional for seniors. I encourage all seniors to participate. I would like to see everybody's over the next several weeks. So they're featuring every week. But I just encourage all seniors to share with us a little bit about their life and their future plans. And then I encourage everybody to read it. So I look forward to this Fridays again. We have great students. It's very nice. And then I just have one last update, continuation from our presentation that we had last meeting on the cultural proficiency courses. So we have some good news. Dr. Tellier, would you like to share the good news?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dirt. In our conversation with Bridgewater State University on
Friday. We can't hear you. Hold on.
I think that's her.
Oh, no, it's not.
Not muted. I'm afraid to get too much closer here.
I noticed that at our other meetings too.
Oh, she's very quiet.
All right, I'm gonna try again. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. We got it.
You're good.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Maybe it's being alone in here. Maybe I'm actually being quieter than I realized. In our conversation with Bridgewater State University on Friday, we're really excited that they have endorsed graduate credit for our cultural proficiency courses. So the courses about which Henry St. Julian and Derek Zara spoke at our last meeting have been endorsed, and so they're offering an introduction to their first course on March 19th, which is next week's full day of professional development. And then they're going to send their first syllabus and open their enrollment shortly thereafter. So it's really encouraging and exciting to develop our relationship with Bridgewater. And I just wanted to be able to share that. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. And that's it. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, or do we hit them all already? All right. Wonderful. All right. Thank you. So next we have an update on Springtown meeting, April the 12th. This is Patrick or you?
So Patrick and Joan Woodward both share a little information about this.
So I'm going to start off, and what we're talking about is an Article 33 that's in the Springtown meeting that when you first look at it you may have a sense that the schools might be involved, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, and it's a proposal that would suggest the town add $75,000 to preschool vouchers, and there was discussions about setting up a task force, and there was some confusion about this, but there was a lot of it was encouraging from the perspective is that there was a lot of discussion about the needs of early childhood and preschool needs and daycare needs in this community. The bigger picture is that under the Biden stimulus bill, there is a proposed almost $40 billion being that would be voted into the stimulus, and that is expected to be signed at the end of this week. And at $40 billion across the country, you think, okay, what does Massachusetts get? The estimates would be 700 to 800 million. It's typically on some of those big funding bills. If you use the 2% rule, that kind of gets you to the Massachusetts number. So those numbers would be going to daycare providers in the communities. So just to be clear, the Falmouth daycare preschool ecosystem is, compared to many communities, is very robust. We have, I believe it's 17 or 18 center-based, that typically means a center-based program typically means a program that has approximately 20 slots or more, and then another 15 to 18 home-based, which would be sort of under 10 slots typically. And so there's a significant ecosystem that would be able to leverage these types of funds from the federal government, and they would flow through the state. And there's also the Cape Cod Child Network is typically the organization that over the years has been the network or the source to help allocate any vouchers that the state has provided in the past or might be providing in the future with these additional funds. So with that, I wanted to just give you sort of that federal level, that state level, and that local level understanding of what the childcare and preschool ecosystem looks like in Falmouth. In the school department obviously plays an important role, but it's really a subset of the overall ecosystem. And I'm going to hand it off to Joan to make sure that you all know this mostly, but the public doesn't always understand the school district's obligation and responsibility to students from the age of 3 on up. and Joan can speak to our programming.
Thank you, Patrick. So as Patrick said, what the public schools' responsibility are in regards to preschool is really a special education initiative. So the early childhood special education services are provided by public schools under the law. It's required by law that we provide services for students that are found to be eligible for special education, who ages 3 to 5, so upon their 3rd birthday. And it's really designed for those students that need specially designed instruction or related services, OT, PT, speech, those types of services, because based off of their disability, they wouldn't have typical access. So it falls under the requirement of FAPE, which I'm sure you've all heard me speak about when we talk about special education, and that's a free and appropriate public education. So our requirement is to provide the services, the educational and related services, specially designed instruction, to our students that are eligible upon their 3rd birthday. And then what we do in the public schools is we create programming in which we're meeting those needs, but we also have a integrated model. So we have peers, which are typically developing students that wouldn't be on an IEP or found eligible to receive those services for our programming. So here in the Falmouth Public Schools, our preschool program is we have a few different options. We have a 4-day session program, and that runs Monday through Thursdays in the afternoons. We also have a 5-day program, and that runs Monday through Fridays, and that's in the morning session. And then we have our preschool programs housed in 2 separate spots. So we have 2 classrooms over at T-Ticket, and those are for our students with more specially designed instruction. They have a higher need. Their educational needs are more, their disabilities are more significant. So they are attending school for a full day program, and then our peers come in the afternoon. So those are our TIP program over at, we have 2 classrooms at T-Ticket Elementary School. And then our integrated program would be where we have our morning sessions and our afternoon sessions. And we have 4 integrated classrooms at East Falmouth Elementary School. And within those, each classroom, we can have up to a maximum of 15 students, 7 of those students with special education needs, and then we can have 8 peers. And those are the requirements. So those we have to maintain within those educational requirements. So again, like I said, we have 4 classrooms at East Elementary that house the AM sessions and the PM sessions, and our 2 specialized programs at T-Ticket Elementary School. We do, in regards to when we think of what Patrick just shared from the tuition and the voucher and the funding for that, we do have all of our students that are found eligible for special education. Those services, those students attend for free. That is our requirement under IDEA and under the special education regulations. There's no charge for students that are found eligible through the team process. And then for our peers, we do have, it is tuition based, but we have sliding scales, and those are and that's based off of a family income. So no students in our peers have ever been turned away. Some students, if they meet the criteria, there is free tuition for some students based off of the financial needs of the family. So in our program, no peers are turned away based off of financial hardship. What we do is, I think it's important to also recognize from a financial perspective, our fees have, our tuition fees have maintained consistent, I'll say from at least the entire time that I've been here. We do have the sliding scale that we work through. And again, I think it's really important for those that may not know it, is because of the special education component of this, unlike kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade,
where a school year starts at the beginning of the year. Our preschool students, if they're eligible for special education, they become eligible to enter into our program upon their 3rd birthday. So many students are receiving services through the early intervention system. And we do transition meetings. We do our planning meetings so that we know those students. We do our child find through evaluations, special education evaluations. And so we have students that enter in our program, students that start on our first day of school, but we could have students that come in through the eligibility process at any given time throughout the school year. So I hope that helps to provide a little bit of clarity about what the preschool program in the Falmouth Public School looks like, and also to mention that it is an educationally based program, preparing all students to be able to have access into the K-12 system, and it is not solely a child care program.
Thank you. So that's really helpful because the article that is a petitioner's article, I think, that it's helpful to be able to see how this might fit into that plan for having additional funds for early childhood. So thank you to both of you. And Leah, I can actually see your hand up already. Go for it.
So I just want to clarify some things just based on all of that information. So it sounds to me, based on what we have within our school system. So we have our integrated preschools where it doesn't sound like there is financial hardship because there's a sliding scale for the peers, and our special education students receive free programming. So my question, so this is going into a question. One thing that I know is a challenge for many parents is this AM PM thing. So not having a full day. Is it possible that these funds that are coming might be able to provide an option for our Falmouth Public Schools to be able to broaden our preschools, to be able to have full day programming for our peers, where potentially that's where they might need some more support financially. And it might be where we could recruit more people, more peers, ensure that we always have our peer matches, because I assume that that might be a challenge sometimes to find those peers. Yes.
So Leah, do you mean oh, sorry, I just wanted to clarify her question. Do you mean the money that's coming, that is potentially getting signed by Friday, or do you mean the money from the voucher program and the warrant book?
No, I mean what Patrick was referring to for the stimulus package that includes funding for early childhood. Yeah, it seems to me that this article, it does not really align with our school system. We don't need that funding for our school system. So yeah, so my question is.
I understood your question.
Yeah.
So one, we don't have the details of how the stimulus package sort of trickles down, right, for early childhood or for K-12 school systems, and what the requirements are in terms of how to spend that. So that's one baseline thing. A more complex question that more discussion needs to go into, not just within the school system, but with the childcare ecosystem, is we need that entire ecosystem to stay vibrant. And we have to be careful about the school system sort of inadvertently, through good intentions, kind of pulling out all the people who really used to go here, but by a good intention, we all of a sudden made more slots available at lesser cost. And so we just sort of undercut them for pay, because the fees that we collect are just part of the sort of the regulatory requirement of we have to provide some level of fees. They don't cover the cost of the program at all. So, we're cognizant of that. So I understand some of the discussion there. And if there was a desire to sort of be more aggressive about building the capacity of childcare programs, we should have it with the entire sort of childcare ecosystem to understand what the best use of any funding might look like. But I do strongly believe that this stimulus funding that's coming through the Biden stimulus through the state, that there will probably be a lot of vouchers being provided through a Cape Cod Child Network or something like that. So I think there's some ways that this will get worked out.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah, I couldn't see you anymore. So
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Patrick, really, really good point. So with our community preschools and childcare, ensuring that whatever is happening, that we are not putting people out of work by offering programming, definitely. Right. So, and maybe, I don't know what this offers, but, you know, universal pre-K opportunities for all, and potentially some school community partnerships of, you know, what that would look like. So it does sound like there's some things coming down the pike that could offer some opportunities to be able to potentially build some of those partnerships, where it wouldn't be that we would be having the students in our school system, but that, you know, they would be in the community, but maybe there's some partnership with the school system. So yes, but thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. If John, you could go back over the IDEA funding just one more time, I think that would help us. I guess my concern with the IDEA is obviously kids go for free, but it's compensated by IDEA. And do we have a dollar amount on that we're required to do? And I think then the second part of that is basically the 75,000. Obviously is appropriate. One, is it enough? And two, if it's not enough, then obviously we may get some federal funding, would make this a better possibility and potential for other kids to be involved. But I think the IDEA would be nice to get a little bit of better handle on.
So thank you, Bill, for asking that. I apologize if I wasn't clear. So our requirement to provide the services for students eligible for special education fall under the IDEA requirement. So the Individuals with Disability Education Act, and that is the requirement of providing the free and appropriate public education to ensure that the students have the readiness, the prepared skills to enter into the K-12 system. So it's not about the funding. It's not grant funded through IDEA. It is a requirement to provide that service free of charge for students that are eligible for special education. So what happens is it just becomes educating the students eligible for special education within our preschool becomes part of our operating cost. And that would be the requirement cost every district across the, certainly here in the Commonwealth. So it's not earmarked with specific IDEA funds to provide services for the preschool students with disabilities. Does that clarify?
Yeah, so the vouchers and the potential Biden plan with preschool, obviously that's going to take care of that program, correct?
No, so the vouchers, Bill, the voucher idea is sort of a local, it's a local idea, a local donation to providing additional preschool or child care vouchers that really doesn't have to have anything to do with the schools themselves. It really could be, and $75,000 is probably a drop in the bucket, right? Especially when you view it as, compared to the Biden stimulus, but it's sort of a good intention, goodwill effort. And I'm trying to, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Who is the last one who remembers how much they paid for childcare?
I don't know, but I was pretty glad that I didn't have to pay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, that childcare juggle, Jesus, that was tough. And the costs associated with it. So just sort of divide that into whatever you remember it was, add a few bucks, divide into 75,000. Does it help 10 families? Does it help 15 families? Who knows?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. All right, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is is discussing and acting on an MCAS resolution. And so let me preface by saying that we absolutely do not have to act on the resolution that was in the packet. But at the end of our meeting last time, we had, Melissa had vocalized an interest in talking about MCAS at least, but it wasn't on our agenda. So since it was going to be on our agenda for this meeting anyway, I included this, which is a similar resolution to one that other districts have passed that came from MASC, so that we would have it in the event that after talking about MCAS that you wanted to vote on it. So I just want to lay the groundwork so you don't feel like I'm like driving the bus over here. So I don't know, Lori, can you or Sonia give some information about what MCAS is going to look like this year? Like who's getting tested and when and all that kind of stuff.
So it has been postponed and in a shorter window but Sonia, do you want to give specifics? Give you a second there.
Sure. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So as Dr. Dorr just shared, there's a postponement and we're clear on the testing window for some grades, but not for others. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in understanding what the impact on the testing window is, in some cases it's shorter, is understanding the best way to take advantage of it. But there is a reduction because the test itself, separate from any impact from COVID in our COVID climate, was going through a process of moving from what's called the legacy test, which was the original paper and pencil test, to the next generation or next gen test, which is digital. And part of that adjustment, for example, the number of testing sessions was slowly decreasing. In some cases, it's gone from 2 to 1 per test, and in some cases, it's gone from 3 to 2. So it's reducing the amount of time and hopefully helping students to demonstrate their proficiency on a number of tasks faster. But in terms of the specific schedule, we are still working through that. We thought we had a schedule as of last Monday, and then a little bit later in the week, we had to sort of set that aside and go back to the drawing.
And can I ask, for kids who were supposed to be taking MCAS last spring, but weren't in school, what happens with that?
So the answer varies a little bit by grade level. I'm going to start with some of our younger learners, and we're working through a process of helping them just sort of acclimate and understand. So we're going to give them an orientation of what the platform looks like and how to navigate it and how to use some of the tools. Much of their learning now, obviously, given the virtual supports and digital tools, they've become accustomed to assessment versions and demonstrating their learning, with a calculator that's embedded in their computer, or they've gotten used to using, screen contrast and tools like that. So they're going to go through how to access the tools that they're most comfortable with as they're allowed in the testing format. So that's some of what we're doing, is just orienting them so that it's not a unfamiliar place to be when they have their opportunity to complete their tests. At the upper grades, there's been a little bit more variance because of the competency determination and the need to demonstrate competency in English, mathematics, and science, technology, engineering prior to graduation. And so there's been some different strategies that the Department of Education has put in place where we're able to, when they open review times, which they've done a couple times for us, we're able to compare our coursework and our students' performance in our coursework against the standards that are assessed at specific grade levels in order to help students earn their competency determination if they didn't get a chance to test over the past calendar year.
Okay, so like if they were, let's say they were supposed to be taking an MCAS competency test last spring, but they didn't get to, and they still don't get to, there's still going to be a way for them to somehow demonstrate that they learned what they needed to so they get to graduate, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we went through one cycle last June, we went through a second one over the summer, and then we had an opportunity to do another validation, I think it was right around January. So they haven't announced firm plans yet for the spring, but following the pattern that we've been moving through at the end of each semester or at the end of summer learning last year as well. The indication is that that process would be in place again.
Because we certainly don't want somebody to not graduate with COVID. Right, did you have specific questions or anything you want to talk about when you thought about it in the first place?
So I was sort of thinking about MCAS the last couple months or so. And these are just thoughts that I've sort of had. I don't know that I necessarily want to pose them as a question, other than I'm sure if I'm thinking of them, other parents are as well. I know that we have to have MCAS because we need a unit of measure, and I completely appreciate that, as much as I cannot stand standardized testing in any way. I totally get it. I wonder if we were to use MCAS as a barometer based on how our kids are doing, progressing or regressing during the pandemic. Again, these are just sort of bullet points that I was thinking of. And to not necessarily prep for them, just to, I feel like, and this was touched on a while back, we're doing a lot of teaching to the test, and I wonder if we just taught and then the test was just there. I don't know. I just, and again, these are just random thoughts that I sort of had, and some of the other ones maybe perhaps aren't valid anymore. But just sort of things I was thinking of. Comments?
No. John, did you have something?
Yeah, but I think, you know, as we, you know, speak with the parents, the students, the teachers, and we, you know, and we are presenting that, you know, their education is still going on, you know, regardless of Zoom and whatnot. With that being the case, then the systems that are normally in place should remain in place. But I do think these discussions with being, you know, not being, ignoring the fact for both the teachers and the students and the parents for that matter, that it's challenging. So I think it's good to discuss it. I do think you still need to have them, just because if you are providing an education to the students, then you should have all the other systems in place. I do think on the MCAS alt side, that there really has to be a specific focus on that side with the different, you know, for example, if a kid is doing a graph or whatnot, and then try to do the points on the X and Y axis of how that is, you know, how that's to be done, and things, just to give a very specific example that I have real life practical experience in, and to work within that, and then to say, okay, well, how do we convey that from the teacher working with the parent, and then if there's another application that would come up with a similar result of the student showing that they have the applied knowledge and that they understand it. So to have a little bit of a malleability with whatever that mechanism is on the MCAS alt program especially, and then to have the teachers and the parents work together towards those goals. So thanks.
I agree with Melissa. This is a time when you really want to look at this process. And I am not so sure it's the academic part of a student's life that is impacting it this year. More of we hear about, you know, kids being depressed and missing all the facets that go with being in a classroom. And I know some high school teachers, and I genuinely, they are just baffled by the number of failing grades. This from really intelligent and motivated kids so I'm hoping that the MCAS writers, graders, or whoever consider more than just the academicness of this year in considering the validity of those test results.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're all listening into our school.
I'm sure, right?
Kelly, I just have another quick question or comment rather. I'm also concerned with the kids that have lost. I know that we've done the best job that we can in providing students that require additional services, but I'm sure that there have been kids that have slipped through the cracks, or, you know, like Tara was just mentioning, all kids have lost so much. How can we prepare them? How can we, I'm really struggling with MCAS this year. I mean, I don't like MCAS period, but I'm really struggling with this year where, you know, we've got motivated high school kids that are not doing well, and, you know, junior high school students that are barely keeping their mouth above water, and Morse Pond kids that are withdrawing by the day. And by withdrawing, I mean like to their own room and internalizing, and they're not seeing their friends, and they're not, I don't know, I feel like this is one more stressor. This is just, I'm really struggling with MCAS this year.
That's fair. I am too. Any other, Andrea? Oh, I think I'll go right now.
You know, I'm certainly not a fan of MCAS testing. And, you know, I've said this before about looking at this pandemic and lessons that we can learn from it. And, you know, systems that had resiliency, people who had resiliency, students who have resilience, that something that we work very hard in our district to teach. That makes a difference, a major difference, when we have crises and catastrophes and even things that we can't predict, like the future and what jobs are going to look like. And these are the skills that we want to teach our students. And it's something that, you know, these types of tests are not really good at assessing, right? And we just keep getting better at the things that we can measure, and the easy things we can measure, we keep doing. And, you know, I think people have mentioned, you know, the focus on needing to teach for this, because it is an assessment of our district and how well we're doing as a district, even though we know deep down that there's so many other ways that we're really seeing how we're doing as a district, right? And we have so many goals in place to keep that improvement happening. And frankly, it becomes also an issue of equity, because, you know, we're selecting for the type of student who can do well on these type of standardized tests. And that's not what we aim for in Falmouth Public Schools. We want to reach every student with all of their types of abilities. So, you know, then you add the kind of year and year and a half that we've had, and I think this is just, like people have mentioned already, it's going to put additional stresses on students and teachers and families that just are not going to be helpful right now. So, and I think you probably remember back in November that MASC, where this resolution that's in your packet has been adapted from, that was put out to the entire state delegation, and it passed. So we're not the only district that is thinking this way and is recognizing this major issue for our students and families.
Yeah, for sure. So the only other thought I had is that how, you know, we have this mandate that our kids are gonna, you know, no matter what, they're gonna take these tests. And yet every senior that I know that's graduating this year and wants to go to college is doing so without having taken the SATs, because colleges aren't asking for them anymore. Colleges have taken the step to say, look, we recognize that you can't do this thing in this crazy year. And yet the state has told us that we're still doing that. So, yeah, it's pretty frustrating.
I'd also like to see SATs take a while, but.
Oh, yes, and you should definitely read that history SATs.
Oh, I have.
Oh, fascinating.
It is fascinating, yeah.
Well, colleges give you the option, though, you can submit the SAT.
Yes. Do we have to act on this?
My hands
up. First, and then we'll, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I I would say many things to say about this, but I'm going to just start from the time on learning. So we just got the commissioner's report of bringing students in full time because we need students to have more time on learning. And MCAS, as all school administrators know in Falmouth, how much time and effort MCAS takes to prepare the schools, to get the staff. The amount of time that students learn or lose instruction because of our standardized assessments during the year is a big chunk of time. And one thing that is not mentioned in this and has not been mentioned in all of the publicity around standardized testing is that we have some of our most vulnerable students right now, our English language learners, who are being tested with the access testing. And it started in January and it is going until May. And so as an ELL director, I have been organizing with all the schools that I work with right now. So for Falmouth right now, we have many students who have been going through standardized testing and who are still going through standardized testing. So if we're going to have any sort of resolution, we need to make sure that we're having equity with this. And we're also representing our English learners who have been taking standardized assessments since January, and that is the access assessment. So I'm going kind of all over the place, but my biggest concern this year is that I feel our staff, our teachers, our staff with this people who are working with our students have a really good sense of where they are right now. And as you guys have talked about, you know, our MCAS, our standardized assessment shows one moment academically for these students. They might not be social emotionally there to be able to demonstrate where they are academically, which is another issue. But I feel that there are other ways that we could have done it this year where we could have had more localized assessments. So if we had been able to get a waiver, for example, the state of Massachusetts, and that the commissioner would allow us to do that, I think that there's ways that probably locally we could have demonstrated success for students or areas that are needed work. I think that our staff know where students need to work. But so I'm kind of going all over the place and I'm sorry about that. I get kind of heated with this topic. I feel that this resolution needs a lot of work. And so I'm not comfortable signing on to this resolution as is. I feel that there are some things that need to be tweaked in it. So that's my last piece.
Okay. Any other comment? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this or have it come back at another meeting, or what y'all want to do?
When did MCAS, when are they supposed to start? Because this, just so I'm reading this correctly, the resolution rejects the calls for all students to undertake the MCAS.
Right.
So if we were to pause on this, for our next meeting, and then we act on it next meeting, clean up the language as Leah has suggested, what does that look like for, when are we supposed to take the MCAS? Is there enough time? Is there?
Well, and I think, so I don't know, we'll turn to Sonia, I think, to answer that, but also it's not like signing this would mean that we're not going to take it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
No, I get it. No,
Yeah.
I'm just sort of, no, I'm just.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know?
No, and I don't think it makes any difference whether let me say this correctly. Bottom line is it's not our decision.
Correct.
So, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
So it doesn't matter, I don't think, when. Am I saying this correctly? Am I undermining what we're trying to do by saying?
No, I think you're right. You're stating the obvious. If we signed this and it meant that we weren't going to participate in high stakes testing this year, that would be one thing, right? All it would be was a statement of where we're at with it. So, but Sonia or Lauren, Sonia, do you know the first window of when MCAS would begin?
Based on what we received last week, we're looking at early May.
I'm sorry, you cut out. It was when?
Early May.
Oh, early May. Right, thank you. Evidently, it was just my ears that cut out. That's okay. I didn't hear it.
However, access has already started. So just to let you know that.
Right. John, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, on the other side of the coin, I think the fact that we're discussing it at least shows everybody involved that we're at least empathetic. And on the other hand, I do think if we were able to somehow impact, and I don't like Terry said, I don't think we can, and Melissa agreed. But I do think there's teachers and students are putting efforts in daily, and I know that. So it's, in some ways, you're kind of undermining the work they're doing too. If you say, if we were able to stop it, I just spent a month on this, and now you're saying, etch a sketch, we're erasing it. So that's just a thought too.
Yeah, I think our teachers are gonna crush it no matter if they take the MCAS or not. They're doing such an incredible job.
No, and that's what I'm saying, is they're doing an incredible job, but when you're halfway there, you're in a dog sled, right, and you're halfway there, and then somebody says, you know what, you don't have to keep going to, to Anchorage or something. It's like, what, I already got halfway.
Andrea and then Terry.
So Kelly, I think that you had mentioned that other districts have adopted this resolution similar to this. And so I guess I'm trying to think about where to move this forward. And if Leah has some edits to it or tweaks that would make it stronger or reflect more of how her thoughts on it as well. I guess I'm just trying to think, if we're trying to build something with other districts to make a larger cumulative voice, would keeping them in alignment help to do that? Or if we made too many tweaks that made it vastly different, I'm just trying to think about how that would work together, whether we just go with something like it is now that has those commonalities, or like I think probably at minimum, Leah would like to add in the access testing, it sounds like. So yeah, that's kind of where my thinking is on it. I think it does make us a strong point, and it helps to add more voices to try to say, I understand that this is, coming one direction from the state, but we have something to say here about our own community.
Right.
I mean, you heard me bumbling around in what I was saying, and by no means did I mean we should not do this. I just meant, and I was thinking of what Leah had asked earlier, if people would feel more comfortable making the bottom line vote in 2 weeks after having read it and potentially tweaked it. I don't know where you look at who's you're talking to. That's really what I meant to say. I mean, I think we should, I don't know if you're allowed to say your opinion before you vote on it, are you?
Sure, yeah.
I definitely think we should sign it, but.
Oh, I agree,
Yeah.
but I'm A-okay having some language.
Would you like me to share the language?
So I don't, yes, I would like you to, but I don't know that we can wordsmith it right now, is what I'm worried about. I
Okay.
don't want to rush. So would you feel comfortable like putting that together and sending it, or actually making the edits on the document and then sending it to me, and we'll get it around to everybody and we'll put it back on our agenda for the next time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yeah, Jeff.
Just a question, so our bylaws and everything say we follow the laws and guidelines, so I think it's kind of pointless for us to do things that aren't following the state laws and guidelines. Just a comment.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I think we're allowed to have an opinion about it, though. I think that's the difference. It's not like we're going to break the law, of course. I totally agree with you. Leah, if I can, I'm going to also ask that if anybody else has things that they want changed, because I have one tiny little edit that I would like. So if we send those edits to you, can you throw them all into one document? I'm volunteering.
Is this a Word document?
Yes.
It is. That was.
I mean, we sent it as a PDF, but Sharon, I sent her text that she must have used, made a Word document and then made it a PDF.
Okay. If I could get it as a Word document, I can.
I will get that done, and if everyone can send your things to Leah no later than the end of the week so that it's still fresh in everyone's brain. We'll go from there.
Good.
Okay, awesome. What a great conversation. Okay, page 2. Routine business, approving the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from, hold on, I'm on the phone. From our February 23rd meeting, and I remind you that it's the one that's either at your desk or that Sharon emailed this afternoon. It had only one edit around our goal 2 section.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Melissa. And Andrea's got the second. Is there any other questions or edits?
So just to confirm, that was to put Natalie's name in there, right? Not my name. Okay, good. I'm like, I got lots of credit for that Natalie needed.
Yes, it's corrected as
Okay.
the document compiled by Natalie listing the progress on goal 2. Any other changes? Okay, and it's a roll call vote, and Leah, we'll start with you.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Tom?
Fenari, yes?
Lisa?
Lisa Hart, yes.
Terry?
Terry Maderas, yes.
Melissa? Melissa Keep, yes. Natalie?
Natalie Cantalopoulos, yes.
Andrea?
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Bill?
Reiger, yes.
And Kelly Welch also yes, so those passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Report from the chair, committee member reports, agendas, items, all those good things. The only thing I have is that a reminder that we have our joint meeting with the select board on Monday, and I'm assuming we will get a Zoom link from someone. I don't know. Okay, great, because there's so many of us, so we can't meet in person. So be on the lookout for that link. Anybody got other stuff? Carrie.
Okay, I want to report on the policy committee because we are in a place that happens once in a blue moon. We are we are up to date, which is rare, but we are even ahead because we have already examined the harassment and sexual harassment policies in our manual. So the President of the United States on Monday was to sign a bill that would have the Department of Education review different practices of regulations, orders, guidances, and policies, and make sure that they're in alignment with his goals, et cetera, and meet federal guidelines. So when they send us the review, which every school is going to get, we're already have tweaked some of this stuff. Okay, so not only are you up to date, and I'm going to tell you, I don't mean to brag how long I've been doing something, but in 12 years, that has happened maybe one other time. So anyway, that's why I'm going on and on about after this long meeting, but it really is exciting, right?
That's
yes. Right?
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys on policy. I cannot imagine. Anybody have
We
other
have to
stuff?
mention Ann Barnes again too.
And
She helps us a lot.
Sure. John and then Leah.
Yeah, the collaborative, we're just working and finalizing a lease for a new building for Waypoint, so that's exciting news. And then we're working on getting a playground built for the STAR program in Osterville.
Great. And Leah, what have you got?
So I actually wanted to share with you just in going with our goal 2 around cultural responsiveness. I watched the Netflix series Amend, and it is about the 14th Amendment, and it is all about citizenship. And I highly recommend it. So I will add it to our Google Drive or our Google Sheet. It is a Google Sheet, right, Natalie, that we have? That's. I will add it to it, but I did want to just put a plug to the committee about it. And there are different episodes that go over different rights of different groups of people. And I just think it's very powerful, and potentially it's something that maybe the schools would want to use too. So I wanted to share that. And then one other piece is that I did watch the majority of the Board of Education meeting with the voting of the guidance that just came out today. And I recommend that if you get some time, watching that meeting is helpful. It gives kind of that high level piece of how critically important our school system is. And we've got these experts who are talking about these doctors who are talking about the mental health needs of our children within our communities. And we've got staff who work with these children every day and who do really hard work and really good work. And we have experts who are really saying that the schools need to be open to be able to provide these resources. And I just think that there's some level of recognition of our school systems and how much we put into supporting families and students. And that I think it's the time just to acknowledge the resources that our school system does need to be able to do this well. And it's the time, COVID's the time to look at this and say, listen, these are, it's really critical. We have our schools open and there are resources we need to make sure we can do this all well. We're going to have students who are going to need some extra support coming in full time. And we're going to see this come April when we're bringing everyone back. So I just want to put that plug out there that it might be a call for additional resources beyond our COVID funds in the near future. So that's it. And I do recommend watching it.
Great, thanks. Natalie, just very quickly, during the last meeting, Bill made a great comment about increasing community engagement in our meetings. Yeah. So 2 thoughts around that. First, would it be possible for the building principals to include a link to our agendas or highlight any upcoming school committee meetings at the end of the week? Absolutely. And then part 2 is looking into having our agendas translated into Portuguese and Spanish to maybe increase that demographics engagement as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
I thought that if any family went on the website, that anything we had is translatable. Am I incorrect in that?
I'm not
Or is
sure.
it just handbooks?
I don't-
And, because I know that.
Can you speak to that?
Is everything translatable?
We have to post, you're talking agendas specifically?
I'm talking,
Yeah,
I guess I'm talking everything, like if a
Nearly
Portuguese
everything.
speaking family wanted to log on and see agendas or not just handbooks or policies, I guess I'm looking, I want everything accessible.
Right,
Kind of thought
nearly everything on our website is, with the exception of the agendas, specifically because we needed to, for whatever legal reason, I think, house those on the town website. I'm not sure about the capabilities about the town website, however.
They're actually on the town website, not ours. So
Just something to look into to see if that's something
That's rather important.
yeah, I think we gotta figure out how to do that.
We could be better than that.
The town could be, I'm not sure, I haven't investigated.
All right, we'll add it to our list, our to-do. It's a really great idea.
Can I just add to that? One resource that we do have with Zoom is to be able to allow closed caption, and I would strongly suggest that we start doing that. That would be in English on the bottom, but it's also a thought of thinking about some interpretation with our meetings too, to give access, because right now our meetings are only being televised in English, and there's no way to get it in Portuguese or in Spanish or other languages. So.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any last things? Okay, so we ended on a video last time and we have another one. It's nice to end on a good note. Oh my gosh.
I am playing Go for Excellence.
saxophone.
These are our first graders. You can bring COVID time.
That's great, and that's good, John, with the whole Zoom team. So they're doing something not on the camera. So that's wonderful. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
I'll second. Thanks, Lisa got that one. Leah, you're first.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Bernard, yes.
Lisa Hart, yes.
Terry.
Jerry Maderas, yes.
Melissa.
Let's keep yes.
Natalie Campbell, yes. Andrea Pearl, yes. Bill.
Ryder, yes.
And Kelly Welch also yes. Thank you all so much. See you in 2 weeks.
No, next week.
See you. All right, did you get my form?
Yes, I got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, look at that.